What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another Week 2 preview and prediction video. Let's take you to Iowa City, Iowa, the home of Kinnick Stadium, and this year, the home of the annual Cy-Hawk Trophy battle. And man, oh man, do we have a good one here. It's the Iowa State Cyclones taking on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Rocco Becht versus Cade McNamara, Matt Campbell versus Kirk Ferentz, and it's just going to be an electric atmosphere as usual for the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy, and we'll tell you everything you need to know about the Cyclones and Hawkeyes here in a minute. But before we dive into that, I just want to say thank you for all the love and support this channel has seen, I have seen, and as we continue to grow on into the college football season. And hey, if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you're not going to want to miss anything I have to say, which means you have to hit the subscribe button. You have to ring the bell. You guys are going to want to know what I have to say during the college football season, right? We're in the college football season. You want to know my thoughts on everything going on around the nation. And look, please help support the channel in any way you can. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to just simply watch this video. It does help support me a ton, but you can also like, you can comment, you can share, and you can do a lot more things to help support this channel. But if you want to support me in any other ways, like you want to know what other content I create, or you want to know my journey to aspire to be a sports media professional and all the work I do on and off campus, things like that, please go give me a follow on Twitter at TailgateNate29. I'll be posting things like games I call, articles I write, this, that, and the other. I would really, really appreciate it if you would support me over there. Again, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. My handle is at TailgateNate29, and I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a follow. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, with all that out of the way, we will now dive on in to the Cyclones and Hawkeyes. How do predictions work here on my channel? Well, I'm glad you asked. We'll take a dive into some keys to the game when each team possesses the football. So first, we'll take a look at the Iowa State offense versus the Iowa defense, and then we'll flip it. We'll look at the Hawkeye offense versus the Cyclone defense, and at the end of the video, I'll give you some final thoughts, give you what I think is going to happen in the game, and then give you my final prediction for the way I think things are going to shape out this weekend. Let's not waste any more time. Let us dive on in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Cyclones and Hawkeyes, and let's go ahead and first talk about keys to the game when the Cyclone offense possesses the football. 353 yards per game on 7.4 yards per play, 600, or not 600, wow, that would be crazy, 267 passing yards, 86 rushing yards. They did have 3.9 yards per carry, only ran the ball 22 times, only attempted a pass 26 times, but they didn't allow a sack, they didn't turn the football over. But one thing that I'll say with this Iowa State offense was there was a lack of explosiveness. Yeah, they had one 54-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Noel, who had 8 catches for 135 yards and 1 touchdown. Jane Higgins played well. The quarterback, Rocco Becht, played well, 267 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. Abu Sama, even though he only had 5 carries, 7.2 yards per carry. The Cyclone offense is going to have to find some explosiveness here for a couple of reasons. One, it just wasn't on the field that much in the game against North Dakota, and it needs to, try to control the pace, which is a key that I will get to a little bit later. But the first thing for this Iowa State offense is we know the potential it has. Abu Sama really started to explode at the end of last season. We know the talent that Rocco Becht possesses, and we know how good he can be. This is the wide receiver room that really proved itself in this game against the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. But the offense has to find explosiveness because this is an Iowa defense that is still just absolutely sensational, guys. They are really, really, really good. They didn't allow a single point against Illinois State this past week. They got back home to the quarterback 4 times. They forced 3 turnovers. They got off the field effectively, only allowed the Redbirds to get 3 yards per play. This Iowa defense still is going to be one of the best defenses we have in college football this season. Mark my words on it. Put that down. This Hawkeye defense is still absolutely sensational. And I mean, you take a look at a couple guys that played really, really, really well for this Hawkeye defense last week. I mean, Jay Higgins, he did really well. 3 out of the 4 sacks were garnered by Aaron Graves, who had 4 tackles. Again, 3 of those were sacks. 1 sack ended up going to Brian Allen there as well. But again, Higgins and Jackson both ended up playing well from the linebacker position. And there's just a ton of other talent on this Iowa defense that played well this past week that will continue to play well throughout this season. Max Llewellyn had 1.5 tackles for loss. Pair that with Kyle Fisher there. Again, you heard me get all of those sacks, but 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups. It's an Iowa defense that is still sensational. If Iowa State is going to keep that clock problem and they're not able to control the pace, explosiveness is the name of the game. You need to create big plays on this Iowa defense, which I will have you know is a lot easier said than done, but they have the potential to do it. Rocco Becht and this Iowa State offense may very well have to grind out this game, but I think an explosive play here and there is going to really be able to help their case. And again, as you just heard me say, the Iowa defense is still amazing. You heard me run through all those stats there just now, but it will be getting a much bigger test when you compare what the Illinois State Redbirds are, who, by the way, are a top 25 team in FCS, so they are no slouch. But for the Iowa State Cyclones, it is just going to be a much bigger test for this Iowa offense. Now, again, Iowa State did not have the football for that long in their previous game against North Dakota. 22 minutes is all they possessed the football for. Controlling the pace is the key for State, and I'm talking about Iowa State here. The Cyclones need to be able to keep this Iowa offense on the field, or this Iowa defense on the field for as long as possible. You need to win the battle on third down. I don't know if you necessarily need to win the battle at the line of scrimmage, but you do definitely have to make it a 50-50 battle, because you are going to have to rip off some runs here. You are going to have to give Rocco Becht some time to throw the football and find his guys downfield to sort of create that explosiveness. And again, guys like Sama and some of the other running backs that the Cyclones possess may have to rip off a big run or two, but controlling the pace is absolutely vital, because that is what the Iowa Hawkeyes are going to want to do. They're going to want to have their offense on the field for as long as possible to grind this game out with their run, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we switch slides here. But if Iowa State wants to have a shot to just sort of flip the narrative here that Iowa has dominated this rivalry, and if Iowa State wants to get back in that win column, they have to be able to control the pace at least a little bit, maybe make it a 30-30 split. I think that would even favor Iowa State just slightly. Rocco Becht is probably the better quarterback than Cade McNamara in this matchup. They still have some very talented weapons outside. Get it to your weapons, control the pace, win the battle on third down, and everything is going to be boding well for the Iowa State Cyclones. When you dive on in now to talking about when the Iowa Hawkeyes possess the football, well, there was a lot of concern about Cade McNamara entering this season, because Kirk Ferentz was, after just some really, really bad things that we saw out of McNamara in fall camp and some really bad performances and all the negative publicity, Kirk Ferentz came on and said some very concerning things about how, yeah, that's what they were used to seeing out of Cade McNamara. And, well, the script was pretty much flipped, because McNamara played really well in this game against the Illinois State Redbirds. He went 21 of 31, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 of which went to Reese Vander Zee. You had a touchdown from Jacob Gill. Luke Lockley, Luke Lakey, my apologies, ended up playing well on the ground. You had Caleb Johnson doing his thing. 2 touchdowns on 11 carries to go for 119 yards, including a 64-yard touchdown. Kamari Moulton went 19 carries for 65 yards there as well. Cade McNamara was not sacked. He did not turn the football over. He did a good job of completing Iowa's mission of controlling the clock. My question is, though, can McNamara and this Iowa offense keep up? Because when you take a look at the Cyclone defense, they only allowed 4.1 yards per play. They only allowed 295 yards. Only 3 points allowed against the North Dakota Fighting Hawks this past week. If you want something maybe slightly concerning from a statistical standpoint, they did give up 174 rushing yards last week. And again, you look at Iowa, 241 rushing yards, and what Caleb Johnson and Moulton were able to do this past week. That definitely might be cause for concern until you dig a little bit deeper. This is an Iowa State defense that did not allow North Dakota to do anything down the field at all. They were really able to limit the explosive plays, but the one thing this Iowa State defense has to improve is they got to get off the field on third down. They allowed North Dakota State in their previous game to go 11 for 20 on third down. They had 20 first downs. That was 2 more than the Cyclone offense was able to muster up. And even though most of these statistics look great, again, let's go back to that rushing statistic for a second. 174 rushing yards, but only 4.1 yards per carry, because North Dakota State ran the ball 42 times. the main key for the Hawk, or not for the Hawk, or I say the main key for the Hawkeye offense is to wear down and win this third down battle, right? And that is definitely one of the keys there that you see at the bottom of the screen. But if Iowa State wants to win this game, and again, going along with their plan to help try to control the pace a little bit more, right? Iowa State has got to get off the field on third down. Iowa, 46.7% on third down that past week against Illinois State. You saw how much of a balanced attack that Iowa had. And if McNamara continues to play well, we know this is an Iowa run game that is going to lead this offense along with being more physical, especially up front, and maybe not letting this Iowa rushing attack dictate the offensive pace like they sort of allowed against North Dakota. Again, only 4.1 rush yards per carry there for the Fighting Hawks last week, but play more physical because it's a much different animal. That North Dakota defensive front, or offensive front, my apologies, to the Iowa offensive front. The Cyclones have to be more physical. They have to win that third down battle. But you guys know more often than not, the Cy-Hawk battle comes down to special teams. It's happened more times than I would care to count. One special teams mishap or a special teams mistake or a special teams dream has dictated the way this game has played out for so many years. Just looking back on this rivalry, special teams have really helped to dictate things. Now, you go away from special teams for just a little bit. You can find this one again on Saturday. It's the Big Ten on CBS game at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Who has the advantage here in this game? Well, if Iowa State is able to control the clock, and if Iowa State is able to win that time of possession battle and they are mistake and turnover free, they give Rocco Beck time to throw the football. I do think Iowa State has the advantage here in this game because even though, again, they allowed 174 rushing yards last week, that's a little bit skewed because it was only 4.1 rush yards per carry. And they didn't really allow North Dakota to do many things down in the field. Now, Iowa is not going to try to rip off big play after big play. They're going to want to grind you down and win the time of possession battle themselves. And the reason that I think if Iowa State wins that time of possession battle, I'd favor them is because Rocco Becht, I think, is the better quarterback than Cade McNamara. That's just the way I see it. But Iowa has the better defense. They have the better special teams unit, and they have the home field advantage. All three of those things are going to come up big and come up key here in this game as the Hawkeyes will be able to secure this win. A special teams mishap from Iowa State or a special teams dream from Iowa, a defensive stop, winning the time of possession battle, turnovers, whatever you want to call it. I think any of those things could be true, but no matter the occasion, I think the Cyclones are going to be able to once again reclaim that Cy-Hawk trophy, bring it back where they think it belongs, to Iowa City. And once again in this rivalry, I do have the Cyclones falling a little bit short. But let me know what you guys think about this game in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all of you guys in my next video. Goodbye.